Alright, hello everyone, welcome in. We're doing a slightly early start because I feel like it, and because I need to end early-ish today, so I figured I'd start early. I'm having a slightly scuffed start, because things just weren't working when I turned everything on. I think I got the audio all fixed, but it wasn't working when I started, and for some reason my webcam was not working. So my model's not going to move very much because my camera's not working. I don't know if it got unplugged or what. I'll have to look at it after stream and figure out what's going on with that. So you'll just have to have the minimal movement of my head moving when I move my mouse, which is fine. But yeah, I think the audio sounds fine. Let me know if the audio's off at all, if it's too loud, too quiet, because again, I opened stuff up and it just wasn't working, but it looks like it's okay now. So we're just gonna go with it. And that's load, continue, where we left off. Okay, so where are we? We are, so in step 3, which is summer when you're 18. And that's where we're at. So let's just jump right in and hopefully we can get through at least 2 moments. Because I need to stop stream around like 11 or 12. So we have 2.5 hours? 3.5 hours. 2.5. Whatever. We have a couple hours. Let's see how far we can get. Oh, yeah, our boy, he's so pretty. And now I want to go to the beach. Okay. Cove pushed himself to his feet from where he had been bent down in the sand, stretching out his back and groaning softly. Let me turn the game down a little bit. There we go. A tired breath slipped past his lips as he wiped his brow, looking out over the shore. It looks great. You stood beside him, joining in the surveying of the sand that almost seemed to sparkle beneath the midday sun. Wow, I read that really poorly, but I'm going with it. The two of you had been out on the beach in the sunrise, cleaning up and down the beach looking for various debris, and the work had paid off. Using a hand to shield your eyes from the blinding rays, you glanced across the way where the other volunteers from Orca were gathered. They were easily recognizable by the high-vis vest they wore. Okay, I need to find a good place to put my cup. I reorganized my desk and still haven't fully finalized where everything is. So if I stop reading to pause, it's probably because I'm trying to figure out where to put my cup. Anyways, it looked as though everyone was about ready to wrap things up for the day. You did great, Cove. I mean, I'm sure you did, but well, I'm happy to see it in a better state. We'll compliment him. Why not? The beach looks better than I've seen it in ages. I couldn't have done without you, and the other volunteers too, obviously. We did a pretty good job, didn't we? You shared a smile, relieved to soon be able to take a break, but feeling proud of what you had accomplished. Cove placed his hands on his hips, a pleased grin pulling at the corners of his mouth as he admired the work you'd both done. You had begun to realize during your time volunteering for the organization how seriously Cove took his service. It was easy to see that it was something important to him. You felt equally as invested and always gave your best. Yeah, sure. We'll say you felt equally as invested and always gave it your best efforts. It was important that the ocean you grew up with was protected. It had always been a big part of your life, and you felt that the least you could do was give back to it in some way. It's been a good year so far. It's crazy to think that it's already time to push the big event. You let out a big breath, thinking of the formal dinner that Orca organized every year. Let's try again. Being completely I knew I would be able to not read sooner or later. Being a completely fundraising focused event for large donors, it was crucial for the organization's projects in the year to come. You had to be over 18 to attend, so this was your first opportunity to actually see it in person. All you had heard about it so far was that it was a prim and proper occasion with speeches and everything. You didn't know what else to expect from it, as you weren't a part of the group who as you weren't a part of the group who planned the evening. Before the big night came around, the volunteers would have to sell the tickets for it, and that's where you'd be helping. I'm curious about the night. I'm nervous. Let's go with I'm curious. I'm curious about the night. It might be fun. I've never been wow, I'm just making up words now. It might be fun. I've never been to a professional type party. Cove nodded, though he still seemed reluctant.
I
just don't feel excited about attending a super formal meal with proper etiquette and stuff, you know? That's fair. He threw his arms out to the sides, making a big show of how ridiculous it seemed to him. I've got sand all over my room and only one nice shirt, and I go barefoot pretty much everywhere I can. I'm gonna be so out of place. That sounds like a great life, honestly. Well, okay, maybe not the sand all over the bedroom. That could be annoying. But besides that, it sounds good. Okay, it's really bothering me that my model's not moving. Okay, we're gonna take a quick break. And I'm gonna jump under my desk and see if I can figure out why the camera is not turned on. One moment. There we go. I can move again. All it took was plugging and unplugging my camera. Okay. Well, it's looking kind of jittery, but whatever, it's fine. Actually, let me check one more thing. Okay, good enough. We're gonna go with it. Okay. I read that already. Let's see. Doing something that fancy will make it fun. I mean, that's kind of true. Yeah, you'll definitely seem out of place there. I don't want to have to worry about manners. That's a valid answer. Well, that's a good one too, right? I bet you'd rather stay out here. Let's go with I don't want to have to worry about manners. Sure. What if they have more than one fork, like in the movies, and I have to pick the right one? What am I supposed to do then? You groaned at the thought, dragging your feet through the sand while Ko chuckled at the thought. A small beeping noise came from Ko's pant pocket, and he pulled it out to glance at the screen.
Huh?
It's the organizers. They've sent a text to the group. Time to call it a day here. Oh, cool. Cove tucked his cell away eagerly, turning to you. Let's head over. Let's remember how to talk. Let's head over and drop the trash bags off at the trucks. Then we can drive back and join the ticket team. We've got to be there pretty soon to relieve them. We have a busy day, just going from one thing to the next. With a stretch of shore this long, the plan was to switch places with the other team who had been pushing the tickets for the fundraising dinner halfway through. It would be a full day of work, but it was Orca's largest event of the year, and all hands were on deck to make sure it was a success. Wow, I just muted my microphone instead of clicking next. Maybe my brain's not fully awake yet. You start pushing Cove on the back to move forward. That's kind of cute. Or you ran off. That's also kind of cute. Although, we've been working for like hours probably. We're not gonna run off. Nudge your shoulder against Cove's. You know, let's really you started pushing Cove on the back to move forward. That just, I don't know, it seems cute for some reason. Time to go! He resisted, leaning his weight against your hands and digging his feet in the sand. Oh, we're having a battle! Battle time, let's go! Oh, don't mind me hitting my mic stand. I'm still getting used to my new mic placement and my new stand. I think I like it better though. But I keep moving it because I don't know where to put it. Okay, with a burst of laughter, you pulled away quickly and he almost fell backwards to the sand. Okay, that's adorable. That's not what I would have done. As I said, I would have, had a battle. Battle of wills to see whose force is stronger. But making him fall backwards is kind of funny too.
Hey!
He joined in with the laughter while stumbling to catch himself. You collected the trash bags spread along the way together, heading across the beach to hoist them into the trucks before heading off to the next job. Cove slipped his warm hand into yours and you intertwined your fingers, strolling back to the car side by side. Aww, so precious. The drive back to your neighborhood and making your way to the shopping street was fairly quick, though Cove stressed a little bit about being late. Luckily, he was able to find a parking spot nice and close to where you needed to be. You jumped out of the car and quickly went towards where you knew the group would be. Finally reaching the stall that was set up to sell tickets, you stopped for a moment to catch your breath. It was quite the flurry of activity. Or that was quite the flurry of activity. It would be your job for the rest of the afternoon to help sell tickets for the fundraising dinner. And looking around the street, you saw that there were plenty of potential buyers out today. That would hopefully help to move the tickets along. The stall itself was simple, a portable table with a few plush sea animals as decoration, and banners stuck across the front. There were 2 volunteers who were already packing up and getting ready to head off to the beach. They gave both of you a friendly smile as you arrived. Hey Cove, June, how'd things go at the beach?
Not bad.
It was good, the place is looking great. We're lucky to get 2 for 1 when it comes to you. We're lucky to get a 2 for 1 when it comes to you guys. Cove cleared his throat awkwardly from beside you, and you noticed his cheek flushing pink. Here we go again. Laughed it off. That's right. That's right, that says. Do we laugh it off or shrug it off? It sounds like this happens a lot, so we're gonna shrug it off. It was true after all. You and Cove spent a lot of time together, and you wouldn't have it any other way. The volunteers made room for you and Cove behind the table, while they circled around to the front of it. Thanks for coming in for a shift. We'd better make this quick so we can head off to the next place. No problem. What do you need us to do? You nodded and gave a small smile to show that you were listening. One of the volunteers handed you a clipboard with all the details needed to sell tickets, while the other tossed a set of keys to Cove, which he caught with ease. Those are for the money box and supply kit. Make sure to keep them on you at all times. Aside from handling the cash for the tickets, there's also a form on the clipboard for the guests to fill in their info. That way we know how many tickets we've sold and who will be attending the event. There's a small script beneath that if you get stuck for what to say, and that's about it. Pretty simple, huh?
Uh-huh.
I think we've got this. Satisfied that you knew what you were doing, the volunteers said their goodbyes and started walking away, leaving you and Cove to manage the stall alone. The keys jingled in his hand as Cove waved them off, before he stuffed them into the pocket of his pants for safekeeping. Bye, have fun! Once the volunteers were out of sight, Cove dropped down into a chair behind the counter. It's a table, not a counter. Behind the table, with a sigh. We made it here just in time. It's cool we traded places with nothing happening. They might have been late getting to cleanup duty. He leaned back in his seat, getting fully comfortable in the space, and gave you a small smile. We're gonna take the other seat, obviously. He's sitting. We've been working all day. I want to sit down. It was a simple plastic chair that squeaked when you sat on it, but it gave you a good view of the street. I'm glad this work lets us at least rest in one place. We've got things under control. I mean, we just got here, but so that is technically true. Let's do we've got things under control. Look at how well we did the beach cleanup, or did with the beach cleanup. I'm sure this will be a piece of cake. I mean, those are two very different tasks, but yes, valid. Cove grinned wider, his gaze pleased as he smiled at you. I like the way you think. Cove rummaged around the station a little, picking up a stuffed toy orca and holding it up in front of his face. You had to admit that it was pretty cute, with its big, bulging eyes and oversized flippers. Setting it back down on top of the table, Cove moved on to check out the rest of the stall, finding a cooler stashed beneath the table. Oh, we got drinks? When he pulled it out and opened the lid, you could see that it was filled with half-melted ice cubes and about half a dozen bottles of water. Grabbing one of the plastic bottles, he unscrewed the cap and took a long drink. You watched the condensation running along the side and onto his fingers.
So?
Do you want one? Yeah, that'd be nice. Cove set his water on his side of the table before pulling out another and holding it out to you. I brought my own. I mean, I would have brought my own, but at the same time, we probably would have finished it by now, so yeah, we'll take the bottle. After opening it up, you took a drink and let out a satisfied sigh. You hadn't realized how thirsty you had been, and it was always good to stay hydrated. The two of you got settled in easily, and you took the chance to look over the paperwork on the clipboard. Cove joined you, leaning over your shoulder to get a better look. Seems like pretty standard stuff. He muttered, and you nodded quietly. It had general info about the event and the work you need to do at the stall, as well as the amount of tickets sold thus far and the number remaining. Cove tapped a finger on the counter as he read quietly over the notes, muttering a few things now and then that you didn't fully hear. He seemed content to be there, and you were sure that the afternoon would pass by quickly. When he glanced out towards the crowd and made a small sound, you followed his line of sight to see that a potential supporter was on their way over to the booth. You're feeling anxious, so it's time to do customer service. I feel that one. Let's see. Try to relax for a bit, quietly continue checking over the papers. You know, we're gonna quietly continue checking over the papers. Yeah. Hi, how are you doing today? Cove greeted the person as they approached, and you were glad he had stepped in instead of making you do it. You were much more content with working in the background, and so designated yourself with the task of taking guest details down instead. Yeah, that's my kind of role. I like that one. Time passed as the two of you manned the stall, and as people approached, your sales pitch would either have them asking for a ticket or two, or heading off and mumbling maybe next time. All in all, you managed to sell a decent amount of tickets, and you could tell that Cove was happy with the outcome. As the afternoon drifted along, 6 p.m. arrived. Time to pack everything up and head home for the evening. Your work with Orca was far from over, but right now there was only one thing left to focus on: attending the actual event. The days continued on in a normal flow, and before long the night of the Orca fundraising dinner was upon you. It was early evening, and you were in your room getting ready as the minutes ticked closer and closer towards the time you needed to leave. Of privacy, so you locked yourself away on your own. We're gonna have Cove on speakerphone. Yeah. The two of you were chatting as you were getting ready, making sure to keep an eye on the time and not get carried away with the conversation. The event had strict guidelines, and you wouldn't be let in unless you were dressed to code. That meant having to find a truly professional outfit, but one that you were also happy with. You're happy to have a chance to dress fancy, or you want to be practical about it? Well, I want to be practical about it. You don't need to be too flashy or anything. Yeah. It was going to be quite a long evening, so you wanted to make sure you were dressed comfortably. Exactly. We'll stick it to the line of code. Yeah, you won't be comfortable in your fancy clothes. Your nose wrinkled in thought as you rifle through the options, silently weighing the pros and cons of each. Whatever you go with, it'll be great. Aww. Thanks for talking through it with me. I never thought I'd see the day when Cove Holden would encourage me to wear something formal. That is kind of a cute answer, but... Yeah, sure, we'll go with that. I never thought I'd see the day when Cove Holden would encourage me to wear something formal. A quiet chuckle came from your phone, and you smiled at the sound. Yeah, this is really a once-in-a-lifetime event. Taking a deep breath to refocus yourself, you looked over the options one last time. It was time to decide on an outfit, and quick. We are doing a button-down shirt and pants. Yes. That sounds like it'd be totally fine. I'm wearing the same same type of thing. Standing in front of your mirror, you quietly assessed your outfit. Do I want to add an accessory or two? Yeah, we could add an accessory or two. Need a little something extra to finish it all off. Rummaging through the rest of your wardrobe, you picked out what you needed to complete your outfit. What do we want? Oh, a button vest. Yes. It was a formal event after all, and you couldn't think of a better time to wear it. And what else? What else do we want to wear? Necklace? Bracelet? Ring? So many options. Let's do... I don't think we're gonna do a tie. That's a little too formal. Not a hat. I mean, you wouldn't really be able to see that anklet. Do we want a belt? Watch, bracelet. I think either... Let's do a necklace. Take your best necklace from your jewelry box. You turn back to the mirror and clasp it around your neck. And... yeah, just go with that. And with that, you're ready to go. No makeup. Finally, you were dressed and had... wow. Let's read the words that are actually there. Finally, you were dressed. It had all come together. Okay, just gotta change my shirt and then I'll be at the car. See you in a minute. You carefully headed down the stairs and into the living room where your moms were waiting for your appearance. As you entered, they both stood from the couch and came over to you, smiling broadly. You look wonderful.
Nice.
And very mature, too. Nice work, kid. They continued to coo and fuss over you until you managed to brush them off. Ma took Mom by the arm and held her close, the two of them admiring you proudly. You sighed dramatically. You're wondering why they're making such a big deal. We're gonna wonder why they're making such a big deal. It's not that exciting. Liz came over to you and smirked as if she was reading the very thoughts in your head. You'll have to get used to it one day. You're the baby of the family after all. Ma came in to give you one last hug before you knew it, another pair of arms wrapped around you, and then a third. Both Mom and Liz giggled as they hugged you tight. Okay, they're having way too much fun with this. This isn't this exciting of an event. It's just an annual fundraising dinner. Calm down, people. We hope you have so much fun tonight.
Have fun.
We won't wait up for you. Stay out as long as you need. You're old enough now. With a last wave goodbye, you left your family and approached the front door. It was time. Stepping out into the night, you closed the door behind you gently and looked across the street. Cove was standing there in the street. His eyes met yours immediately, as if he had been watching your house for the moment you had come out. He smiled bashfully. Hey, June. Hey, I hope you... Nope, let's see. I hope I can read. I hope you're ready to do this. He took the chance to check over his outfit as he walked across the way to meet you. It was formal for sure, though didn't feel overly posh. It made sense for him and was honestly a sight for sore eyes. He was always beautiful to you. With a growing smile, he stepped closer, his cheeks reddening all the way down to his neck.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming with me and for dressing really nicely for this. Your outfit, it's just perfect. Aww. You're so hot right now, you said flirtatiously. Or you look amazing. Which direction do we want to go with this? Let's go with a kind of calmer and slightly more neutral. You look amazing. We don't want to get too worked up. We have to go to the party, so we'll do you look amazing tonight. You glanced over him from head to toe, noting that his shirt, pants, and shoes were all shiny and new. He had put in the effort, and it showed. He couldn't stop himself from looking down in order to inspect his outfit now that you pointed it out, and to avoid having to face you directly after you did. Look at that cute little face. But turning away did nothing to disguise how transparently pleased he was with the compliment. Thank you. Then he shook his head, glancing back towards the garage and throwing a thumb over his shoulder. Then he shook his head, glancing back towards the garage and throwing a thumb over his shoulder, spoke.
Come on.
We should probably get going. Wouldn't want to be late to such a grown-up event, right? Yeah, let's go. You headed over to Cove's car together, hopping in and strapping on your seatbelts. You were on your way. The event was being held at a place you had never been to before. You brought up the location on your phone to help Cove navigate there. It took some time to find the right address, and once there, you were met with the task of finding a parking spot. Though you were on time, it seemed like everyone else had already showed up and claimed the spaces. Eventually, you found a suitable place, before realizing that it required payment. Cove covered the amount, taking a ticket from the machine and leaving it on the dashboard of the car. Oh, fancy. That's very pretty too. I like the color scheme. So shiny. Okay. Despite the small holdup, you managed to ultimately make it to the event and confirm you were on the guest list, before being shown into the dining area. Cove whistled low as he looked around, taking in the extravagance of the room. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and the entire place was decked out with beautiful oceanic displays. You were stunned yourself. It was extremely high class, even more so than you had already expected. This is way too frilly for me. It's over that. This is the best looking event I've ever been to. I mean, it's probably true. Sure, we'll do that. Your lips parted in a wondrous smile as you took in. Helps if I can read. Your lips parted in a wondrous smile as you took in the decorations and the guests all dressed to the nines. Cove met your eyes with a similar look on his face. You got the impression that he felt the same way about it. The sound of your names being called out echoed over the din of the dining room. When you looked around, you recognized a couple of the organization leaders looking your way. What is that face right now, Cove? Why are you raising your eyebrow at me? They approached you both in greeting, giving you a welcoming smile and a hello. Cove, June, we're glad to see you can make it, especially after all the hard work you've done to help make this night happen.
Of course.
Definitely, I wasn't gonna miss it. You say that as if we had a choice. I wouldn't have missed it either. This is our big night. Of course we had to see what we were working towards. Well, thank you for being part of the team. You're our best power couple, that's for sure. You're always welcome to participate in more activities when they come up. Cove let out an awkward, breathy laugh and rubbed the back of his neck. Good to know. Cove shrugged then, eyes darting around the place with an awkward look.
So...
I guess we should talk to more people? There isn't much else to do at an event like this. You found your way into groups of people who were standing around chatting while some light music played in the background. Servers with large silver trays were gliding between the guests, offering drink and canapes. Cove approached various people as you wound your way through the guests. He managed broaching new conversations well. You were enjoying talking to so many different people, both guests and members of the organization alike, and found yourself enjoying the company. The sound of a microphone crackling came from the podium at the other end of the room. Someone who you assumed must be the host for the evening was asking everyone to sit down in preparation for the meal and speeches. You and Cove looked for your table, finding it easily enough by the little name cards that were placed delicately beside the napkins. A few others joined you at the table, though they weren't... Wow, okay. A few others joined you at the table, though there weren't anyone that you recognized. The host was still speaking as people were settling, starting off the speeches by giving a welcome to everyone attending. She went on to provide some more information about Orca, which you supposed was for the guests who weren't part of the organization, and the purpose of the fundraiser tonight. Orca's goals, as she explained it, were to aid in the conservation and restoration of oceans and beaches. There were many people who had helped to make their group as successful as it was. When she read off a list of several volunteers who worked on making the event happen, Cove's name was one of the first ones to come up. His chest puffed out in pride at that. Aw. Your name then came up a little further down the list. You were smiling from ear to ear at the mention. As she continued on to thank the large donors for the event, you checked over at Cove. He was still grinning happily to himself and tapping his fingers over the tops of his knees, pretty pleased to have been mentioned by name. You were excited for him. He had worked so hard to make this event happen. It was the least that he deserved. While the host continued speaking, multiple servers dressed in black were setting the first course of the menu in front of the guests. One of the servers set down a plate in front of you, and you thanked them quietly before looking over the dish with interest. You recognize the dish as a simple Caesar salad. Oh, those are good. Though I haven't had one in ages. The host quickly wrapped up the end of her speech, thanking everyone once more before inviting you all to begin your meal. Anyone who had included a special dietary note when signing up for the event received a vegan or vegetarian version, and there were also small baskets of bread set around the table. We'll eat both of it. We'll eat both the salad and the bread. Cove wolfed down his salad before munching into a breadstick, quickly devouring that as well. I hope the next part comes soon, and is bigger. Oh, you sweet boy, you're so hungry. You could hear him mumbling to himself as he reached over for another piece of bread. He glanced around the table and you followed his line of sight with curiosity, noticing that everyone else was still eating the salad. Stopping his hand midair, he quickly pulled back and rested it on his lap without taking another breadstick after all. It was clear that he was starting to feel unsure of himself, and he looked a little out of place here. He folded his arms and turned away from them to you. Hey, did you like the salad? Yeah, it was really good. Yeah. I can't wait to see what else they serve. His gaze remained purposely tunneled on you, as if he was trying not to even think about what the rest of the table might be doing. Aww. Oh, there's an option to pick up a breadstick and give it to him. That's what I was thinking earlier. You picked up a breadstick and gave it to Cove. It's okay. Oh, thank you. Cove spoke gently as he took the bread from your hand, looking choked up by your reassurance. He munched away on it happily, seeming much more at ease. It wasn't much longer until the main course was arriving, and the various chicken, steak, and veggie dishes were being served throughout the room. An array of scents wafted through the room, making your mouth water. What did we choose? This is a fancy event, so maybe the steak. Normally, I'm more of a chicken person. But we be fancy tonight, so we chose the steak. It was nice that you had been given the option of how you liked your steak cooked, and the meal on the plate in front of you seemed perfectly to your taste. Kof had gone for the steak, and once he started to dig in, he was completely absorbed by his meal. What can put a hand on his thigh under the table? You couldn't resist a little teasing while he was distracted. The arm reached forward, out of view of everyone else, hidden by the heavy tablecloth. You let your fingers later rest on the center of his nearest thigh. Cove stopped eating immediately, his elbows banging against the top of the table in shock as his face slowly turned red. Calm down. The tableware next to him clotted from the impact. When it settled down, he spoke creakily without moving to face you directly. Yes? Nothing? Is something the matter? His flustered frown deepened.
That's...
Jun, you should probably... Cove's voice trailed off quietly, and you got the impression that he was about to ask you to stop, but he didn't really want you to. You kept your hand where it was for a little longer, giving his leg a gentle squeeze until he cleared his throat and leaned in closer to you. You probably shouldn't keep doing that right now. Fine. It was a shame it had to end, but you were content with how long he had let you keep your hand where it was. When you returned your hand to your own lap, Cove let out a small sigh of relief and continued eating again, though at a slower pace as he was still distracted from the event. Dinner eventually ended, and last of all was dessert, a lemon sorbet that had been partially dyed blue. I don't know how I feel about that. Also, I guess some lemon sorbets are more of a white than a yellow. I was gonna say, how do you dye something yellow blue without it turning green? It's probably pretty though. The mix of, okay, yeah, it was a white sorbet. That makes more sense. It was a mix of white with bold streaks of blue, made the little scoop look like a ball of roaring ocean waves. Oh, okay, I see. Okay, that's pretty. The effect was very pretty, but the serving size was small. Perhaps it was the price to pay for artistry. You turned to Cove to find him pouting a little at the size of it. Digging into the dessert, it took him only a few bites to polish it off. Again, the other people around the table had barely even begun eating. An unimpressed stare settled over him as he sat back in his chair, sipping at his water unhappily. You laughed at us, moping we can get more dessert later. We'll say we can get more dessert later. Or, yeah. You gave him an encouraging smile. He looked up at you sheepishly, embarrassed to have been caught sulking over such a thing. He fumbled for a defense.
I mean,
it was just really good, that's all. And now it's gone. But I'm okay. With a slight grin, he shrugged to show that he was really fine. We could give him some of mine. I mean, I want some of it. But he can have some too. You scooped up a spoonful of your sorbet and offered it to him, holding a hand beneath it to avoid any drips. I just remembered we're in a public space at a table with other people, and we're hand feeding him ice cream. Whatever, it's fine. His eyes widened as he eyed the dessert hungrily, surprised by the offer. Recovering quickly, he leaned forward over the table, lifting out of the chair a little as he ate the treat from your spoon. As he sat back, humming happily with his mouth full, you couldn't help but smile at the sight. Aw, it's so cute! Go swallowed the faux ocean and let out a satisfied sigh, even though it wasn't that much more. The simple fact that he'd gotten more hit the spot.
Thanks!
You're welcome. You thought back on the way he used to be so terrified of sampling food that was yours, and now he hardly batted an eye. It was always amazing when you were struck with how he'd grown and how he'd stayed the same. Another person from Orca got up on stage to make a speech as everyone was nearing the end of their meal. They spoke mostly about the individual projects that the organization was working on and their plans for the near future, as well as encouraging anyone who was interested to consider volunteering. Cove bent forward over the table with his chin balanced on a hand, listening attentively to the words. As they came to a conclusion and everyone gave them a round of applause. Cove caught your eye and smiled. You wondered what would happen now. And then the lights dimmed. A couple of spotlights came on, projecting a water-like effect around the room. That's cool. I like that. The guests gushed over the ambiance, and you looked around with wide eyes at the ripples on the walls. The DJ that had previously been playing some soft mood music in the background announced that the floor was open for dancing, slowly turning the volume up so it drifted through the space. When you glanced at Cove, his eyebrows had shot up, and he mumbled quietly.
Huh.
I didn't know there would be dancing. I guess it makes sense now that I think about it. He gave an awkward laugh as both of you watched as people rose from their seats. It was clear now that many of the donors were couples. A small crowd had started to form on the dance floor, and the DJ played a romantic song to get everyone started off. Cove let his gaze float over the small sea of guests who were moving onto the floor, his hands twisting in his lap as his lips pulled into a tight line. And then with a breath and a lift of his hand, he turned to you. Aww.
Well,
Want to dance with me? Well, obviously. Of course I do. His face lit up, you could tell even beneath the dim light. Accepting Cove's outstretched hand, you rose from your seats together and stepped out onto the floor. When you had found a spot for yourselves amongst the other guests, you turned and faced him, standing close. Cove gave you a small smile as you looked directly at him in front of you. He seemed a little nervous. I don't know how to dance. Not for real. He admitted with a slight squeeze to your hand and a sheepish look. You gave him a reassuring grin and nudged a little closer to him still. It's okay, I know. With a familiar face full of affection, he let go of you and raised his arms to... I just lost the sentence. Okay. With a familiar face full of affection, he let go of you and raised his arms to slide both of his hands behind your neck. You wrapped your arms around him in response. Together, you gently swayed to the music, moving your feet in time to the delicate beat. It was nice just being here like this, in each other's arms. You didn't have to worry about whether you knew the right steps or not. There was always a way to make it work between the two of you. Aww, that's so precious. Cove leaned his head in nearer to yours, his forehead so close to yours that they almost touched. His breath was warm as he let out a contented sigh, tickling your skin. You really do look so good tonight. You're such a gorgeous guy. Aww. Thank you. You smiled widely, feeling your cheeks hotter at the compliment. Have you had a nice time? I hope you did. Of course I have. I came here with you, so yeah. You leaned in and kissed him. That might be a little much. We'll say I came here with you, so yeah. He let out a breathy giggle. His bright eyes stayed locked onto yours, studying you with unmistakable adoration. Thank you for staying. You're still here, just like you promised you would be. Your heart felt light as you continued to sway whilst holding your most beloved person. So glad to be able to share a moment like this with him. His smile suddenly tilted unexpectedly. You couldn't guess the thought that had crossed over his face. Hey, June? Yes? His voice a gentle whisper. He let you in on his small secret. You know I like to complain about things and that other people can stress me out, but...
It's nice.
Coming here with you tonight did make me feel bad. Not even a little. Aww. That's so precious. Your lips parted at the words, old memories rushing back to the surface of your mind. Those are your very first formal party together, the summer soiree at the country club. In an instant, you were 13 years old again, sitting on a grassy hill in a dark golf course with your neighbor. It was an experience you could never forget, where it felt as though there was no one else in the world, and where he made you feel like there was no one else in the world he wanted to be with. That was the night Cove tried so hard to enjoy with you, but had been plagued by his anxieties despite it all. And now, you began to tear up happily. You are speechless. You know what? We're gonna do. Began to tear up happily. Snuffling quietly, you gave him a watery smile, fearing you would choke up with emotion if you tried to speak. Cove's hand caressed the back of your neck, making you feel truly treasured. Aww. Even though I still get like that sometimes, when there's other stuff in our lives that's too much for me to deal with. But being with you, that's not one of those things. Aww. You make it so easy to do. You make me happy, more than happy. When I'm with you, I feel safe. Oh, it's so precious. His voice wavered ever so slightly, his feelings getting the best of him. I want more than anything to be able to do that for you. You too, buddy. Aww. He broke up last words, tears glistening in the corners of his eyes. I'll say you already have. You whispered securely. He stopped moving to the music. Take your moment to look at you with nothing else taking focus. He tried to speak, though there was nothing he could manage at first. He tried to speak, though there was nothing he could manage the first time. He tried again, but still couldn't say much. Then, I'll keep doing it. He was overwhelmed. A lot has happened, huh? You nod faintly. You weren't sure if you meant just today, this summer, or your entire time knowing each other. But it didn't really matter. It was true either way. Thinking back on the years that you and Cove had been neighbors, it was difficult to even try to reflect on it all at once.
I'm so glad.
I'm glad we ended up here. He gave you a soft look, and you beamed, knowing that could also mean many things. But from his tone, you were certain he didn't only mean here at this event. It was more than that. We'll do There's Nowhere Else I'd Rather Be. You loved him, fully and completely you did. His smile widened, and he pressed his body against yours, resting his head into the crook of your neck, stroking the back of your head with his fingers. You tightened your grip on him and let your head fall against his shoulder. As the night drifted on, you held each other tight, swaying to the music as if you were the only ones in the room. Cove was sweet the entire time, his warmth brushing against your skin as he whispered words of affection in your ear. He was extremely good at making you feel special. You couldn't have hidden your blissful smile even if you wanted to. The party eventually started to wind down, and at last it came to an end. When the lights turned on, you blinked against the brightness of them, making sure you still had Cove in your sights. One final speaker came up to the podium on the stage, thanking all the guests for coming and wishing everyone a good night. It was bittersweet to see it come to a close. Your time with Cove here was precious. At least the memories could be brought with you. Giving the space one more look, you walked together with Cove out to the parking lot. The other guests were doing the same, so you got stuck in a bit of a crowd. Though Cove was so tall, you could always see him, and it was easy enough not to get separated. The parking lot itself was quite big, and even more noticeable now with fewer cars blocking the view. It took a little while to actually locate Cove's car across its expanse. Eventually you found it, and the two of you bundled inside the vehicle and buckled up. The trip home was quiet as you both silently reflected back on the experience. The event had been the biggest night of the year for Orca, and now it was all over, just like that. Outside your window, the surroundings soon became familiar, and you found yourself back in your neighborhood. Cove pulled the car into his driveway and put it in park before letting out a relieved breath. Home sweet home. Yeah. After climbing out of the car, you walked slowly down to the road, Cove coming over to stand beside you. You stopped in the middle of the street, right between your house and his, and turned to him, finding him in the process of opening his mouth to speak. Strangely, he clamped his lips together, as though he suddenly thought better of it. Ooh, that was quite a night. Yeah. Cove let a breathy laugh, nodding in agreement. Yeah, it was. Do we ruffle his hair playfully, step in for a hug, or kiss him goodnight? Let's do a kiss goodnight. Needing to be close again before the night ended, you pressed your lips against his in a gentle kiss. He smiled as you separated, running his fingers over the side of your face.
Night.
With a last wispy smile, he left towards his front door. Figuring you shouldn't linger in the street for much longer, you crossed the remainder of the road and did the same. When you reached your house, you pulled out your keys and stuck them in the door, trying your best to be silent about it. Opening the door a crack, you turned back and looked at Cove from over your shoulder. Your eyebrows lifted in surprise to see he was doing the same, holding his front door open but waiting for you to go inside before he did. You shared an amused smile before you both stepped into your own houses, locking the door behind you. It was quite late, so everyone else was already asleep. As quiet as a mouse, you tiptoed up to your bedroom and changed out of your formal clothes and into your pajamas. Now that you were finally home, you were exhausted. You brushed your teeth and got ready for bed in darkness before crawling under the covers and letting out a heavy breath. It was still strange to think about how that was it. The build-up to the event had felt like so much. Now it was completely behind you. Your mind was busy with rapid yet muddled thoughts as you faded closer and closer to sleep. As unconsciousness creeped up on you, you felt more content. It was a big deal, but there would be more in the future. You could accept what it had been, and you could dream about what you'd get to experience next. Oh, that was so good. And then you were taken away from dreams, right back into reality by a sound. Your eyebrows pinched together, fully unprepared to be part of the waking world again. The day was over and had been an eventful one. But you heard another noise. It was a tapping. Your eyes flew open. The window. There was tapping that came from your window. Cove Holden is at the window again. You went over to let the guy and you rushed over to him. I mean, to be honest, we're just gonna, he just woke us up. It's been a long day. We're not gonna rush over. We're half asleep. You extricated yourself from your bed, yawning. You stretched your arms and then made your way to the window. There was another tap right before you arrived. When you pulled it wide open, Cove was indeed there. You had not been surprised to find Cove awkwardly crouched on your window ledge. However, you were taken back to see that he was a little overdressed. Cove hadn't changed out of his formal clothes. Cove, why are you climbing through windows in your formal clothes? Especially when you only have one set of formal clothes, do you not? Anywho. I mean, not that I'm complaining, because he looks quite nice in them, but still. You also noticed that he was perched clumsily. You didn't know if it was because he was trying to keep his fancy clothes clean or if he felt weird about something. His body was too stiff and awkward. Even given that Cove was normally all thumbs, he looked off balance, significantly more than usual. Cove smiled sheepishly. Hi, June. Nice to see you, Romeo. I do like that response. Have you looked at a clock? I don't know. Do we do hi or it's nice to see you, Romeo? Yeah, let's do hi. You moved aside and let him climb inside. He cautiously stepped down by stretching his legs over. Strangely, he didn't use his hands for support. It was clear to you now he was holding something. When he was safely on his feet, he briefly checked out his clothes, twisting around to see the back of his pants. He caught you looking and shrugged.
I mean...
I did go home after the event, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to settle down, so I just walked back out. I needed fresh air and time away from everything. He paused for a moment and raised his clasped together hands where you could see them. But then something happened, and, well, so I have something I want to show you. Cove grinned like a child and gently unfurled his fingers, not being able to keep you in suspense for even a minute. Aww. Carefully sitting inside was a tiny yellow light. It blinked off and then on again. A firefly. Oh, he got a firefly and brought it to us. That's so cute. Although at the same time he did just bring a bug into our bedroom, but that's beside the point. Delicately, he moved his hand closer to you, or closer, so you could see the creature better. They're back. Aw. He closed his eyes, his smile now faintly illuminated by his insect companion. Remember the first time I caught one? I always will. I could barely manage anything because of that neon pink cast I was stuck with all this. I could barely manage anything because of that neon pink cast I was stuck with all summer. You were still stunned by what was happening, but couldn't help snickering when Cove did. It was thanks to you that I finally held a firefly in my own hand. I was happy too. Honestly, I didn't think I'd see them this year. I don't know why. It's just, they were kind of late, and I guess I've been worrying about a lot of stuff lately. You could tell that the firefly generally lifted his spirits. He seemed at peace, and he wanted to share that with you. Aww. The fact that his first thought after discovering the fireflies was to come over and celebrate the joy with you made you suddenly feel very cherished. Cove opened his eyes, but he looked away, not meeting yours.
It's nice.
It's really nice, I think. Even if the fireflies disappear for a while, it doesn't mean they're really gone. They'll come back. I can see them again. You smiled. And then you looked at the firefly keenly. There was definitely something poetic about them. You felt a warmth in your heart. Cove looked at your face, his smile now fragile. It makes me think about the two of us. We're together, then we say goodbye, and then we're together again. Day after day, year after year, and even if our time apart gets longer, it doesn't make it forever. Aww.
June.
I'll always be there whenever you want to see me. Aw, it's so cute. You were so in love with him, there was nothing else you could think then, and he needed to know. Your heart started to pound in your ears, and all you could hear was blood rushing. You looked at Cove and found yourself fixated. The only thing you were aware of was your rapid pulse in him. It was as if your entire relationship was playing over in your mind, every step that led you here. Everything from the first night you met to how you started as little kids who were good friends and grew even closer. To the first time you saw fireflies together, to the first time he snuck in your room, and then to every other moment you shared. All of it came back to you. Cove's expression had turned curious as you left him waiting, wordless. He tilted his head in question, his lips parted to speak, but you went first. What is this for? Yeah, I love you. I love you, Cove. With your confession, the world stopped for a second. Cove froze. Then, as if your words had turned a faucet, tears began to fall down Cove's cheeks. He silently mouthed something, but you couldn't make out a word. Cove? You stepped closer and closer, removing the distance between the two of you. Aww. He covered his mouth with a hand. He must have forgot about the firefly resting there, and it flew off into the night with a twinkle. He used his other hand to shakily reach over and interlace his fingers with yours. He gripped you tightly as he started sobbing harder. What you wiped away his tears. Gently, you took your free hand and wiped his tears away. We're gonna say I love you again. Cove removed the hand from his mouth and used it to hold the back of your head. He brought your face to him and your foreheads brushed together. He looked straight into your eyes. His voice trembled, it cracked, and it shook. This was raw, straight from Cove's heart. I love you. He closed his eyes tightly and repeated himself, but now he could say it firmly. I love you. His aqua eyes sparkled when he opened them again. Fresh tears poured out with an outburst of emotion.
Sorry?
I'm sorry I can't get it together. I tried so much to love you quietly, secretly, and that being it, but I really want you to feel the same. I wanted you to love me back. I wanted to hear you say it. I just kept thinking, what if you didn't? Maybe what I felt was too much, and I didn't know how to handle that. I didn't know what to do, but I didn't want to put any of that on you either. You weren't doing something bad. Everything you do was right and wonderful.
I'm always like this.
It wasn't your fault I had to be like that. I'm just like that. He leaned in closer, hiding his face from view, his lips trailing over to your ear. He whispered, but you love me. You love me. He moved his head back so his forehead was centered on yours, and then he closed his eyes. He shook. The hand you still held was trembling. I'm so sorry. I'm really always like this. You kissed him. You pulled him into you, kissing his lips. He returned it desperately. Cove managed to bring a fragile smile onto his face. He was still shaking, but there was something decided about him now.
I love you.
He repeated it more, as if to make up for all the times he didn't let himself say it before. As he spoke, his tears dried up and his breathing became more even. The reaffirmation helped him calm down. Thank you for telling me. Cove's smile was bolder, even as his voice wavered, and he ducked his head again in childish shyness. He clearly fought against getting emotional again. His watery eyes, his muscled hair, the tears still drying on his cheeks. You loved him so much. I needed to tell you, or it was only the truth I love you? What was only the truth? You felt content in the moment. You really wanted to touch him a lot. Well, yeah, we'll do it. You really wanted to touch him a lot. Oh, you could like go all the way. Let's do. You kissed all over his face. You moved your face over to his cheek and gave it a nice smooch. You smiled and then placed another on the tip of his nose. You kissed across his forehead, moved on to gently brush your lips against his eyelids, and then the corners of his mouth. He made small pleased noises and wrapped his arms around your lower back. He pressed himself even closer against you. What else? I ran a hand through his hair. You stayed close to him and used one hand to comb through his hair. He leaned into your hand when your fingers got deeper into his strands. Cove tilted his head and brought his mouth to yours. Your lips delicately touched, too brief and slight to be a true kiss, but enough to be exciting. The slight touches were because he was also using his mouth to mumble something, although you couldn't make out any clear words. I'll whisper his name. Cove. You said it hushed under your breath and then brought your lips to his ears and repeated yourself longingly. Cove. A shiver went through him and his grip on you tightened. He had to... What? Oh, he had to, with the way his knees almost buckled. I'll kiss his neck. You nuzzled up against him. You could hear his breathing pick up. You kissed across the exposed part of his neck. He made a quick gasp and let it out as a long sigh. While you busied yourself over his neck, he reached down to stroke your thighs slowly. And now kiss his lips. You began to pull Cove into a kiss, and he welcomed it. Both of his hands cradled your head gently. He was full of sweetness for you, and eagerly you took it. You only separated when you needed air. You huffed, getting oxygen back into your lungs, all the while grinning at your boyfriend. Cove beamed at you and then kissed you back once more, a brief but solid stamp of his affection. I think we're gonna stop there. Satisfied, you pulled away. You took a step back from him and tried to settle your pounding heart. Your pulse, your breath, Cove. It took a few deep breaths to focus again. He did the same, leaning his head back and covering his eyes with one hand. He was as red as could be expected, definitely bashful, but honestly he looked plenty pleased. You couldn't help thinking about how happy you were to be with him, how certain you wanted to spend your life with him, how certain you wanted to spend your life with him, and you told him as much. I hope we get to spend our whole lives together. I suppose I could have been nice and not make him cry again, but might as well get it all out now. Cove's expression crumpled again. He wasn't able to tamp down the new wave of emotion. His eyes watered once more, and he took a few heavy breaths. I hope so too. We could be together always, have a place of our own, with just the two of us. Well, okay, and his fish. That's fine. You felt warm being able to talk about this openly. You liked to imagine the life you could have together, and now you could do it with him. He rubbed at his scarred arm bashfully. You know, I thought having to grow up for real was going to be so hard. I didn't know if I even could, but you, well, maybe it won't be that impossible.
So...
I mean, I better make sure it's not, huh? I'm looking forward to it. Finally, he was able to laugh softly. The tears were nothing but salty remnants on his cheeks. I like that phrase. It's very poetic. The tears were nothing but salty remnants on his cheeks. I like that line. Anyways, stop getting distracted. His tears were nothing but salty remnants on his cheeks. He brightened up as if finally able to process the absolute joy of tonight in full. You felt good too, and took a little more time together to simply exist in the new dynamic you had stepped into. Cove looked into your eyes with a soft, slightly shy expression. There was hope in his smile. Do you want to go to the hill with me? I bet there's still fireflies. Oh my goodness, Cove. That's so precious. Yes, let's go. Let's go, obviously. Cove brightened. He was practically bouncing at the thought of a secret excursion before he suddenly became bashful.
So,
how should we leave? We could just try the door. We don't have to do the window thing. But maybe that bother your family? You both checked how awkward it would be if your mom's, or worse, Liz, saw you going on a midnight firefly catching trip. You'd be sure to avoid that. We could leave from the window. Let's go through the window. Cove nodded in understanding. You grabbed some shoes and readied yourself for an adventure. You were glad that there was no way you'd run into another soul outside. Cove would be way overdressed and you were still in your jammies. That would be very funny if someone saw us like that. You let Cove go first. He stepped back onto the ledge as you carefully followed. He shuffled along and soon you reached the garage. You planned to use the fence from there to reach the ground. Cove shakily climbed down from the fence and held it tight with a death grip. He hesitated for a moment and then let himself fall to the ground. He leaned against the fence and projected hushed words up to where you were waiting.
are you okay?
Do you want help? Sure, we'll let him help us down. You got to the edge and let Cove spot your descent. He grabbed you about halfway down and brought you to rest firmly on the ground. Cove gave you an encouraging smile, but neither of you were speaking yet. You briskly snuck behind the house and up to the old white poppy hill. And Cove was right. The entire hill was lit up, insects twinkling here and there with their pale yellow light. Cove let out a contented sigh, finally able to relax in full. He strode further up the hill to better enjoy the view. You walked along as well, letting yourself be surrounded by the twinkling display. Then, without warning, Cove plopped onto his back. He paid no mind to smacking his formal attire in the grass. He put an arm under his head and stretched the rest of his limbs out. He was clearly getting quite comfortable in the dirt there. We lay down in the grass. You sat down first, then fell back. You could see the stars when you looked up at the night sky. Then you snuggled against Cove. He was warm in contrast. He was warm in contrast to the chilly ground. Cove cuddled closer in turn, tucking his arms up near your shoulders. I wonder if Dad'll be mad about the grass stains. He tugged at the collar of his shirt. He didn't sound concerned, just idly curious. Maybe you should figure out how to clean it before he finds out. His smile bent a little, and it went silent between you. The only sounds were the rustling of bugs in the breeze, and the faraway crash of waves on the sea. You couldn't help but reflect on what happened only a brief time earlier. Between this and your room, this almost felt like a different world. Was it even real? What happened between you two? You could almost be convinced it wasn't, and that you had never actually stopped dreaming. You stole a glance at Cove. He caught you and blushed. That little reddening reassured you. Cove remembered same as you. What you had was real. Let's just continue watching the fireflies. It was easy to be swept away by the atmosphere. Fireflies and stars, all glowing in the night, and white poppies glistening by their light. The view brought back precious childhood memories. You nuzzled your head against Cove, staying close. You had no desire to move anytime soon. Both of you were determined to take in as much as you could. You smiled with contentment as the fireflies danced. The hour grew late, and the fireflies mostly dispersed until only a few stragglers remained. Then even they blinked out of sight, leaving you alone with Cove and your thoughts. Cove stole a second to release the words that had been filling his head during the quiet. I love you, June. He felt a great deal of happiness. Cove's expression was completely open, honest, and full of sincerity. He meant every word. He truly loved you. No matter how much it didn't seem real yet, it was. It felt as though this was a night that would never end, but you knew it would have to, all too soon. You were only grateful to have been a part of it. These were moments to truly treasure. You never let yourself forget them. Oh my goodness, that was so good! I love it so much. Their relationship is so precious and pure, and I love it. And that took an hour and a half. Okay, so... Oh, that was so good! Okay. We're gonna take a quick break. I'm gonna go get some more water. I just kinda... I don't even know. I have no words. Words aren't working. So we're gonna take a quick break. I'm gonna go get some water, and then we should have time for one more moment. So yeah, feel free, get up, stretch your legs, get some food, get some water, do whatever you need to do. Stay here and hang out, whatever you want. We're gonna take a quick break while I get more water, and we'll be back in a few minutes to continue the next one. are back. And now let us start the next one. Like a lazy cat, you stretched your arms above your head and yawned, blinking your eyes sleepily. The day was warm and pleasant, and you were lounging on the couch in the living room, finding it difficult to do much in that moment. Your moms and Liz had gone out shopping, looking for some new items for your sister to take back and decorate her college dorm with. They had asked if you wanted to go with them, but you declined. For you, today was all about relaxation. Cove had dropped by to spend some time with you, content to join in with doing nothing. The two of you have been chatting idly as you lazed around, talking about the other things you had planned for the summer. Let's say you're stretched out across him as he sat on the couch. You had your feet propped up on one of the armrests and used Cove as a comfy cushion beneath your head, totally settled in. Cove gently ran his fingers through your hair as you rested on his legs, equally at ease. The day dragged on, and you found yourself yawning more and more often between conversations. You had almost dozed off completely when suddenly a buzz rang out, disturbing the silence. Your phone was on its charger in the kitchen, so it couldn't have been that. Cove pulled his own phone from his back pocket and checked the screen. His movement had jostled you, so you tried to readjust your position to get it right again. It's my mom. After leaning forward and setting the phone on the coffee table in front of him, Cove hit the speaker button. Hey, what's up? June's here too.
Hi.
Oh, she changed her hair. It's so cute. Hi, Cove. Hello, June. You made a small noise response. Hey, Mom 3. That's adorable. You're interrupting a very important do-nothing time, you know. I hope you know you're interrupting our cuddle time. I mean, she'd be totally into that response. Do we want to completely embarrass Cove? I mean, I think we're gonna have to do it. I would feel slightly bad. I mean, no, but we're gonna do it. I hope you know you're interrupting our cuddle time. Her light, tinkling laughter could be heard easily through the phone. Very sorry, this won't take long. Okay, so he didn't seem to mind it too much. Cove baby, I wanted to ask if you had a plan for all your junk. Well, that's rude. Why are you calling it junk? Cove made a small, outraged grumble, giving you a sidelong glance. It's not junk, it's important. Though you couldn't see it, you could tell by the sound of her voice that she was smiling.
Aha!
But is that a yes or a no about the plan? He looked over at you, his mouth pulled into a tight smile. I'm still thinking about it. June? I'm gonna take the phone off speaker so me and mom can go over this. I'll be quick. Cove carefully moved you off of him and took the phone from the table before pushing himself to his feet. He hit the speaker button again to turn it off and continued the conversation with his mom as he headed towards the door. The lock clicked behind him as he exited the house, and you sank back into the cushions, idly trying to decide what to do next. After electing to grab your phone from its charger, you resumed your position on the couch, tapping away at the screen. Your mind drifted away from thoughts of Cove and his phone call, with all the many ways your device could distract you. It was an effective enough way to kill time, and you had managed to do various little things when the door opened again and Cove returned. He gave you a smile as he approached, so you figured the conversation couldn't have gone too bad. You watched as Cove strolled over to where you were still sitting. He crossed his arms against the top corners of the couch, resting on them while bending forward to lightly click blah blah blah. Well, okay, let me just try that whole sentence again. He crossed his arms against the top corner of the couch, resting on them while bending forward to lightly kiss the top of your head.
Hey!
I'm back. You gazed up at him. You tilted your head and gave him a small kiss. He met your lips with his, closing his eyes and letting you kiss him longer than the one he had given just prior. Is everything okay?
Everything's
fine, just... He turned his head suddenly, running a hand through his hair and letting out an exasperated breath. He seemed nervous, but you couldn't imagine why.
Fine.
It's fine, not anything to worry about. You raised an eyebrow at his tone, moving your head to the side to try and meet his eye. That doesn't explain what's going on. He shrugged and gave you a tight smile, trying to play whatever it actually was off as unimportant. There's nothing going on, just stuff I can deal with later, some other time. He was transparently avoiding the truth, and you stared back at him seriously, an indication that you weren't going to ignore what he was doing. Eventually, he broke beneath your stare, hanging his head in his hands and groaning. I need to make another trip to my mom's place. There's some stuff out there that I'm gonna use, so I'll have to go pick it up. It wouldn't make sense to ship it, and I couldn't bring the stuff back with me last time since I flew. Oh. Suddenly you understood what the phone conversation had been about. Cove was going to drive to his mom's house in Nevada. Are we going to go on a road trip? Let's go on a road trip! Road trip to Nevada. That actually sounds like fun. When will you go? Mom thinks it would be best to do it now while I'm still kind of free, but... Cove pouted, giving you an unhappy look, and you could see the prospect was already taking a toll on him. I don't want to. I was just there, and for even longer than usual. Why do I have to leave right now, when it's our last summer like this? You thought it was cute, you were wanting to say. What do I don't want you to go either? Where's the just take me with you option? I'll say I don't want you to go either. Isn't there another way to get your stuff? Could she drop it off instead? I don't think so. Looking up again, you met his bright aquamarine eyes, finding a sad smile tugging on his lips.
Oh.
Suddenly, his eyebrows jumped, and his eyes lit up like a lamp. You could come with me. There we go. That's the idea. Yes, road trip. What? You could come with me. I mean, I get that the two of us live next door to each other, and my mom lives in another state. My trips there usually spend time with her, just the two of us. But this time it won't be like that. All I'm gonna do is drive over, stay for a night, and then pack up the car in the morning and turn around again. Most of the time will be spent in the car, so it'd be good to have another person there. Plus, you'd have the chance to see my mom again, and her place. Maybe we could even find something cool to break at on the way. You couldn't stop yourself from laughing at his enthusiasm. He blushed a little, reining himself in.
Please?
I just feel like it could be fun. Please, could you think about it? I mean, I don't need to think about it. I think this is a brilliant idea. Let's go. I want to go. A road trip sounds fun. I'll have to let my moms know, but as long as we've got nothing else important on the days we pick, then there's no reason I wouldn't be able to go. He grinned from ear to ear, thrilled by the news. He put both his hands on your cheeks, kissing your face all over. Then he wrapped his arms around your neck, letting out a happy sigh.
I'm so glad.
This is so great. I'll call my mom back and let her know right now. You spent some time together going over your schedules and making plans for when you could take the trip. You need to fit it around Cove's work schedule, which he brought up on his phone to double check. Luckily, it was only a 2-day trip, so finding a couple free days in a row wasn't impossible. It wasn't long before the dates were finally set and all the plans were made. You are excited for the trip. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. A short trip sounded like the perfect way to spend some time. You could listen to music, eat snacks, and enjoy the open road. No matter what you thought about things, the morning when you were due to leave arrived. It was cooler than usual, the sun barely peeking over the tops of the houses. You stood outside your house, on the footpath near the road, waiting for Cove. You were feeling refreshed after a good night's sleep and an early wake-up. With your travel bag clutched in one hand, you watched as Cove finished packing up his car. He had organized all sorts of things, water bottles, snacks, and who knows what else. Cove insisted he had everything under control and didn't need help. At least you could rest easy knowing that it was all taken care of. As you waited, you glanced over Cove's car. You knew it well. It used to belong to Mr. Holden, and when Cove had learned to drive, it passed on to him. His dad had taken the opportunity to get a newer one. It was pretty old at this point, but had served both of them well so far. You just hoped it had enough life left in it to survive a trip as long as the one you were embarking on. The slam of a door closing made you jump. You snapped back to focus and saw Cove was walking towards you. He dusted his hands off on his pants and tilted his head towards the car. That's it, ready to go? Yeah, I'm ready. He smiled and stepped aside, giving you space to situate your own bag where you wanted it. Once everything was safely inside, he glanced back at you.
All right.
We should get started. It's gonna be a ways to go. These are all good responses. Sure, we'll go with woo. Why not? We are excited for this trip, so let's go. Let's get this show on the road. He chuckled at your enthusiasm, shaking his head slightly. The two of you climbed into the car and buckled in, Cove in the driver's seat and you sitting shotgun. His eyes moved to you.
Thank you.
Thanks again for coming on this trip with me. Of course, it's no problem. After checking the mirrors and starting the engine, you pulled out of the driveway and then the trip began. With a small sigh, you got cozy into your seat, watching the familiar houses of your neighborhood pass by. Cove reached over to turn on the radio. A crackle of static, mixed with the odd snippets of songs, filled the car as he flipped through the stations. Mr. Holden's car was in good condition, but it was, well, older. There was no way of plugging a phone to play music, so the radio had to do. Eventually settled on classic rock station before sitting back and resting both hands on the wheel. Is this okay? Yeah. Yes, you know what I like. How could I forget? He smiled, happy with the answer. Time flew by, and with it the scenery outside your window became more and more unfamiliar. Neither of you spoke for a good long while, but the quiet was comfortable. You had become all too used to each other's company over the years. Eventually, Cove broke the silence, clearing his throat softly before he spoke. It's been too long since you and I have spent time with my mom. I know she still comes to the neighborhood sometimes, but it's not even once a year. I'm always going to hers. I'm happy the two of us are I'm happy the two of us are doing this. Yeah, me too. But speaking of your mom and trips, remember that time she took us on that crazy drive all across town? He shook his head at the memory, his laughter clear and bright. Oh, I remember. I kept worrying about papers and shoes while you were having a blast. I wonder what I was thinking. That really was over the top. He smiled quietly to himself, clutching the wheel a little more confidently. With a crinkling of his eyebrows, a look of nostalgia crossed over Cove's features. Mom always knew how to make things memorable. I can't deny that. Silence slowly crept back into the space, both of you thinking back on that night and all the memories you had of it. Your elbow resting on the windowsill, you gazed out at a world that was slowly coming to life as the morning rolled on by. The sun climbed higher in the sky. Luckily, the sunbeams weren't going right into your eyes. Hey, do you mind reaching back for me? Cove gave you a sidelong glance as you drove, indicating with a nod of his head and a tiny smile. I want some chips, the salt and vinegar ones. Didn't have a common selection. That's a great flavor. I mean, honestly, I'm kind of neutral about salt and vinegar chips. Like, I don't dislike them, but I mean, they're kind of like salt chips, just with vinegar. Wow, that was a profound statement. Salt and vinegar chips are like salt chips, but with vinegar, obviously. Anyways, we're gonna say did have a comment on his selection. Stretching out the seatbelt to give yourself space, you twisted in your spot and reached into the bag holding the snacks. It took a bit of effort to sort through the collection of goodies stuffed inside, but eventually the bag of chips crinkled beneath your fingers as you pulled them out and sat back in your seat. Here. Thanks. Do you mind opening it? His eyes lit up at the prospect of the snacks, and you shook your head in amusement, popping the top of the bag. I'm going to hold the open bag out towards him. Yeah, that makes the most sense. Because he is trying to drive. Can't have him juggling too much at once. With a smile, he dug into the bag noisily, picking out a couple of chips between his fingers and popping them in his mouth. The sound of crunching and rustling filled the car as he reached over from time to time, taking a few more. Wow, I just got really hungry now. Now I want chips. Ultimately, he elected to drag out an entire handful at once, losing a few of the chips to the floor. He is a very hungry boy. After that, you rolled up the top of the bag and stowed the chips safely in the back again. When you turned to the front, it was to find Cove crushing the fistful of chips into his mouth, crunching loudly. He wiped his hand on his pants absentmindedly before gripping the wheel and spilling crumbs all over the place. Cove, you're making a mess. Did you pack a mini vac? Because you now have crumbs everywhere. We're just gonna laugh at it. You couldn't stop the amused sound that escaped you, and when Cove raised a questioning eyebrow, you simply shook your head. The hours drifted by much the same way as that, with the two of you snacking and chatting as the day stretched on. It was fairly calm and quiet, traveling along the open road, and you found little in the way of interruptions. At one point, you passed a Welcome to Nevada sign, and Cove gave a tiny cheer. He was in disbelief that the two of you were seriously all the way in another state like this. Eventually, you had to stop for gas and made a detour to a small diner to grab a proper meal that didn't consist of chips and candy. After refueling both the car and your stomachs, the drive was back on, just as the sun began dipping beneath the horizon and bathing the sky in a wash of orange light. Cove informed you that there wasn't too much longer left to go. You were almost there. When night eventually fell in a blanket of darkness, the drive finally came to an end. Cove pulled into the parking lot of Kira's apartment building, the glow of the car lights disappearing as he turned off the engine and let out a heavy sigh. We made it. We're here. The two of you exchanged tired smiles, having successfully and safely completed one half of the trip. You were relieved to have actually arrived and eager to get out of the car and stretch your legs. You took the stairs up the building together. After a knock, you were abruptly met by a flash of green hair as Kira opened the door and immediately took her son in her arms.
Cove!
Oh, her place is nice. I love all the blocks of color. I like that sofa too. I always get so distracted by all the rooms in this game. I just want to look at all the little details. I like this apartment. It is very nice. There he is, my gigantic baby boy. She squeezed him for a moment and then pulled back so she could examine his face. Are you even taller than last time I saw you? Cove gave her a fond look as she patted the top of his shoulders proudly. You say that every time I'm here. It doesn't even make sense right now. My last visit wasn't that long ago. Kira simply laughed before letting him go fully and ushering the two of you into her apartment. Then she turned to you, a wide grin pulling at her lips. June, it's so nice you came along with, and as a bonus, you've both arrived in one piece. Yeah, it's good to see you. It's been a long time. Kira beamed at you both, and while you would have loved nothing more than to settle down and rest after the drive, you could see she wasn't going to let you go that easily.
So
how was the trip? I admit I was just a pinch worried. You felt the fussing was unnecessary. The two of you are both 18. You didn't think your parents needed to worry so much anymore. It was fine, no problems for us. Kira clapped her hands together, the bracelets around her wrist jingling. I'm so proud. I can hardly believe how mature you both are. Where did all those smarts come from? Cove ran a hand over his hair with an awkward chuckle.
I don't know.
Maybe I got some from my parents. His mom looked up at him deeply, her eyes glistening as she shook the sentimentality off with a wave of her hand.
any whoosies.
I love that. Any whoosies. You have to be half asleep already, huh? I don't want to keep you up much longer. Early morning and any whoosies? I'm not quite sure what any whoosies means in that conversation. Oh, because we got up early. So you've had an early morning and I don't know. Any whoosies is a weird phrase. It's cute, but also just like odd. Anyways. Although I say anyways a lot, I suppose. It's just kind of a cute way to say that. How do you want to deal with the sleeping arrangements? I've only got my own room and Cove's, though the living room couch isn't bad. June can use my bed, I'll just sleep on the floor in the room. It doesn't matter for one night. Kira gave him a skeptical look. Her lips bent into a teasing grin. What? I wonder why I don't believe you'll stay on the floor when Jun's right there in your bed. Ko froze in shock, his cheeks turning a dark beet red. Then his eyes narrowed and he scolded her with a harsh whisper. Mom. Kira giggled to herself, but managed to give him an apologetic look upon seeing he was less than impressed by her teasing. Sorry, baby, I'm only pointing out the obvious. He's had a long day. It's cruel to tease the poor boy so late, even if it's true. You put your hand on Ko's arm in a show of support. I do kind of like this one. He's had a long day. It's cool to tease the poor boy so late, even if it's true. At the same time, that's kind of hypocritical because you're saying it's cool to tease him, but you're also totally teasing him. But in like a loving way. We'll just put a hand on Ko's arm in a show of support. He gave you a grateful smile, and Kira cooed at the two of you.
Hey!
She finally let it drop, and you tried to move on. Do we take the floor? Or say thank you for the bed? We'll just say thank you for the bed. Let's just go with his idea and move on. Cove offered a small smile.
Don't worry about it. So...
Would you be okay with me sleeping on the floor in the room? I'd rather be there than out in the open in the living room, even if there is a couch. That's very valid, very fair. Yeah, because this couch is it's in the middle of everything. It's a very open concept apartment. Yeah, you can sleep there. Kira giggled softly, drawing your attention back to her. All funny stuff aside, you need to get some sleep for tomorrow. Seems like you're setting yourself up not to get any. I know that sounds really captious, whatever. But I'm a mom, I have to say these things. Come on, we're not little kids having a sleepover. We're responsible adults, right, Jun? Yes, very responsible. No, we're not. Yes, very responsible. She gave the two of you a suspicious look, and you stood up straighter, trying to prove her point. I'll leave it at that then, for now. Just remember that the walls are thin in this apartment. If you can't settle down and sleep, I might have to separate you. We'll be good.
Marvelous.
Kira clasped her hands together, her bracelets softly tinkling against each other again. It's only getting later, so I better let you prepare for bed. She nodded towards the hallway and gave you a small smile. I'll play hostess for a sec and show you where the bathroom is first, Jun, and while you'll be staying the night. Thank you. You hoisted your travel bag back over your shoulder and followed behind Kira down the hallway. Go shuffled along behind you, disappearing into the bedroom while his mom had you go to the restroom. The apartment was small, but nicely decorated in soft, cool colors, with plenty of artwork hanging on the walls to give it character. It was stylish and exactly what you would have expected from someone like Kira. Oh, it's so cute! It's so cute and beachy. It kind of looks like a hotel though. Those kind of odd nightstands, but it's cute. After being shown the bathroom and wishing Kier, although it has hardwood floors, it's not going to be very comfortable to sleep on. After being shown the bathroom and wishing Kier goodnight, you headed to the room and found Cove already there. He had changed into a sleepwear for the night as well. Looking around, you found the bedroom to look much the same as the rest of the apartment, but with small ocean elements that you were sure Cove must have enjoyed when he stayed here. All in all, the room was pretty and clean, though it almost looked more like a hotel guest room than a bedroom. That's what I just said. Cove only spent a few weeks out of the year there, so it made sense that wasn't especially lived in.
So?
What do you think? It's pretty nice, huh? Mom always keeps it clean and everything, even when I'm not here. It seriously looks like a hotel room. It does, but I'll just say it's a great room. Cool, I'm glad you like it. He seemed pleased enough with the response and gave you a small smile before opening the zip on his bag. When you went back to the room, you jumped in bed and under the covers just as Cove was shuffling into a sleeping bag on the floor. You waited until you were settled in before you flipped off the lights, and a soft glow from outside peeked through the blinds, casting shadows over the floor. You closed your eyes, blocking everything out.
Night.
Night, June. Oh, there's storage under the bed. That's nice. Night, Cove. Sleep well. The room grew quiet as the two of you wound down for the night, and you found yourself listening to the sound of the city outside the windows. The noise out there was so different to what you were used to back home. Cars zooming past and people out having fun, instead of crashing waves and the ocean winds cocooning your house in their embrace. This feels familiar, don't you think? We've been having sleepovers for years. Cove mumbled quietly and rustled in his bedding, turning to face towards your location.
Right?
Feels like I've had this view so many times, looking up over at you tucked into bed. You trailed off a little, and you assumed he was drifting off to sleep, too tired to continue the conversation. But then, as if a switch had been hit, he sprung up, startling you as he shot upright in his sleeping bag. Wait a minute. Why am I always on the floor? Okay, that's like, I don't know why that's adorable, but that is like an adorable thing for him to just now realize. It's like, we've been friends for 10 years and he's just now realizing he's always on the floor. What? You raised your eyebrow at him through the darkness. The times I slept over at your house, you guys stayed in your bed. It was your bed after all. But when it was my family hosted things, Dad always made sure you got a bed there. The words spilled out of him faster and faster, the pitch of his voice rising as the revelation spiraled. He'd say that you were the guest, so it was only right. No matter what, I've always been the one who takes the floor, every time. This is a racket. You wanna swap? You only just realized it was right. Burst out laughing. I mean, it is kind of funny that I was just now realizing this. But we'll go, I'm sorry I didn't want it to be that way. Because, like, yeah, it's like we thought you wanted to sleep on the floor. You felt really bad about the whole thing, but Cove was too hysterical to listen. Okay, I think Cove might need some sleep. You're being a little dramatic. My life is crumbling. I can't believe it. This has been going on for 10 years. He stopped suddenly, and you could see through the limited light that his eyebrows were angled in disbelief, his frown wobbly in shock. That's how it is in my family. My moms have always thought that it was more fun and comfortable for the guests to use their own sleeping things, rather than a stranger's bed. That is also a valid idea. Like, that makes sense.
Hmm.
And in my family, the guest gets the bed, because it's good to make sure your guests have a proper place to sleep. We're opposites all along, but I never even thought about it. When it looked like the situation was going to stall there, Cove sighed suddenly, his shoulders slumping in a sleep-addled defeat.
It's okay.
Forget it. It's too late to take back all those nights on the floor. At least I can't think of myself as being really considerate. He sounded resigned to his fate, but despite looking on the bright side, he was still pouting. He went over, I don't know, do we go over to cheer him up or say I feel bad that you're unhappy? We'll do, Cove, I feel bad that you're unhappy. I wouldn't have minded giving you the bed.
I know.
With a tired sigh, he flopped back down. I can make do with the floor, for old time's sake. Some real humor came back to his tone. It's basically a tradition by now. So do we offer to switch or do we offer for him to join us? I mean, say why don't we share? It's big enough. Cove inhaled deeply, the fabric of his sleeping bag crinkling loudly as he fished it beneath. I told my mom I was gonna stay on the floor. I mean, I don't think she meant that we couldn't share the bed. You frowned, wondering when that had ever stopped him before. Did you really plan on going through with that?
No.
You hesitated a little, the silence stretching between you. You couldn't help but smile to yourself. You knew him well. The sleeping bag rustled again, and through the dim light you saw him stand and head towards the bed. He took a deep breath as he ran his hand across the top of the blanket, gathering his nerves as his eyes met yours. And then he paused, head tilted to the side as if silently asking permission. It's all right. You shuffled over to make room for him as he pulled... Sorry, I got a notification, I got totally distracted. Okay, you shuffled over to make room for him as he pulled the bedding up and crawled beneath the covers, leaving the two of you close together but not quite touching. He exhaled a heavy breath as he lay down on his side, his head getting comfy on the pillow next to yours. You had a strange feeling in your stomach, like it was doing little somersaults, but it felt good to have him close. He raised his fingers and delicately brushed the tips of over your cheeks, drawing a shaky sigh from your lips. His touch was warm and feather-like, making you feel tingly all over. When his eyes met yours again, you found yourself lost in them, the world becoming still and silent around you. Then he froze, his muscles tensing as he closed up like a clam and his breath hitched in his throat. He attempted to whisper something, but it was completely lost on you. With that having to suffice as a warning, Cove jumped out of bed and crouched down on the floor, his head held in his hands as he took a few deep, stuttering breaths. You bolted upright in the bed, staring down at him with a mixture of alarm and bemusement. Are you okay?
I'm always like this.
I'm fine. I'm sorry, June. Really sorry. I'm just so... He panted deeply in and out, as though he had just finished running an entire marathon. After finally staying his breath to a normal rhythm, he crawled back into his sleeping bag and huddled down on the floor, his back turned to you. Sorry. Aw, sweet baby. We'll say you understood. Maybe a little disappointed, but for the most part we understand. He usually needed at least one trial run before he could take that kind of step forward. Let's go with a thank you for trying. He made a small noise, acknowledging that he'd hurt you, but said no more. With the event over, you lay back down in bed alone for this night. The next day dawned, bringing with it the sounds of birds chirping. 1 sec. It's hard to read and sneeze at the same time. The next day dawned, bringing with it the sounds of birds chirping happily outside the window. You opened your eyes slowly, letting them adjust to the light as you tried to recall where you were, and remembering the unfamiliar sight of Ko's second bedroom. Had we woken up on our own, or had Ko woken us up? I'm gonna say we woke up on our own. The early morning sun filtered through the blinds, telling you it was about time to get out of bed and start getting ready for the day. The sound of Ko shuffling around the room drew your attention, though you weren't surprised. He had always been a morning person. Sitting up in bed, you let out a yawn and stretched your arms above your head. You're quite refreshed. There was a lot to do, and you were ready and willing to get into it and get ready for the trip home. Good morning. How'd you sleep? Pretty good, thanks. You? Yeah, it was fine. You pulled yourself out of bed, grabbing a fresh change of clothes and your toiletries before heading to the bathroom. After all that, you met Cove back in his room. He was sitting on the floor when you entered, sorting through a bunch of stuff in a box, determining what to bring and what to leave behind. Hey.
Hey.
Can you pull out the stuff in those drawers? You nodded, though he hadn't even looked up from his task, so you knew he wouldn't have seen. Heading over to his drawers, you started the task of taking out various items and setting them on the ground in front of Cove. After a while, it became clear to you that Cove was acting strange whenever you went near him. He was flinching over your presence. It happened a few more times before you couldn't take the awkwardness any longer. You dropped the stuff you were holding down in front of him and raised a questioning eyebrow. Is everything okay?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry about last night. Again. He quietly squeaked the second part of his thoughts about not staying in the bed with you. I know you try not to mind or be mad at me, but I wish I didn't have to make you accept me backtracking all the time. Aww, sweet baby. He swallowed thickly, struggling to find the right words to explain himself. I do think it felt nice, really. It's just also not bad, but good in an inconvenient way.
I mean,
laying together like that, being so close, it gets too hot, you know? His cheeks flushed with color and he immediately trailed off, his eyes firmly fixed on the floor. Ooh, this one. It was that intense for you, huh? Maybe I'm the one who should apologize. I get you to stay the whole night next time, right? We'll do this one. It was that intense for you, huh? Maybe I'm the one who should apologize. His eyes widened, a pink tinge creeping onto his cheeks before he could duck his head enough to hide it. Don't worry about it. You don't need to do anything. Let's get back to packing. With it more or less resolved, you went to grab some more items as Ko focused on the box in front of him once again. Oh hey, look at this! When you turned towards the sound of Ko's voice, you found him digging through one of the drawers beneath the bed.
Neat.
Here's something I definitely need to bring. Craning your head, you get a better glimpse of what he was holding. A small stack of papers. You immediately recognize the handwriting as your own. Those were letters you had sent him when he was away. Aw, he kept all our letters. He kept them the whole time. That's adorable that you care so much for them. He sighed, glancing between you and the items in his hands. They bring back some good memories. A faint blush of color crept over his cheeks, and he looked away quickly.
It's nice.
These are special. It was important having a piece of you with me when we were apart. Aww. I feel the same way. That's why I gave them to you. Ko smiled, pleased that the feeling was mutual, but then the expression became more amused. And did you keep the souvenirs I brought back? Of course. His grin grew. His grin grew to completion. Thanks. An hour passed by in silence, and you were happy to see you were making great progress with Ko's room, with only the closet left to sort through. You took a minute to take a mouthful of water from your bottle and perched on the edge of the bed, feeling productive. Ko glanced over at you and paused, putting down the tape gun he had been using to seal up his boxes. You raised an eyebrow. You know, it's really strange to see you sitting in this room. Why? You mean why? Because I've never been there before. He frowned a little, his eyes distant and his voice quiet when he spoke next.
That's...
During the visit to Mom's, when I was sitting here alone in this room, I'd sometimes think about how you weren't here. Aww. It was a weird feeling at the time that you just weren't around, and now that you're here in this exact place, I don't know how to explain the feeling. He shrugged it off and smiled a little, as though he'd said enough already and didn't want to risk sounding silly. Life is pretty confusing is all. I didn't know you thought about me when you were away, or I missed you so much when you were gone. That's why I didn't know you thought about me when you were away. You have to laugh at that, his eyes crinkling at the corners as he made a face at you. It's not like I could forget you. He looked away, satisfied, heading over to the closet and the last of the items to be sorted. Before long, every box, closet, and drawer had been thoroughly combed through, with items either neatly packed up in boxes or organized or returned to their proper place. With a sigh of relief, you glance around the bedroom and the work you had done together.
All right.
We're done. Good job to us. I'm gonna change out my PJs for the drive. Yeah. When the two of you headed out into the living room, ready to get everything finalized and hit the road, you found Kira in the kitchen, pouring a cup of tea. Cove headed towards her, leaning casually against the counter that divided the two spaces. Hey, you didn't have to get up so early.
Come on.
Are you crazy? Of course I have to see you off before you go. You can't sneak away while I'm out cold. She beamed at him and, in all honesty, seemed more than happy to be up and getting ready for the day. Do you want some breakfast? I've got some muesli? I don't actually know how to say that word. Muesli? Whatever. That. Or eggs and toast. Oh, and some of that fruity cereal you used to love. That's okay, we should really eat on the road. Kira smiled sadly, a little disappointed, but she seemed to understand that your time was running thin. I thought you might say that. In that case, I've packed some snacks for the road.
What do you think?
Even if you don't end up eating them, take it anyway, just in case. You can always feed them to Cliff when you get home and tell him I said hi. Cove laughed and shook his head, knowing his dad would love nothing more than to polish off whatever food Kira had prepared for him.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mom. You really didn't have to. Thank you for the snacks. I'm sure they'll come in handy with this guy around. Cove scoffed playfully. Cove scoffed and playfully rolled his eyes, earning a giggle from Kira. I don't doubt it. Like father, like son. She returned your smile with one of her own before putting her cup of tea aside. Well, I'll help you get the car packed.
Sure.
The three of you got a move on, taking the boxes from Cove's bedroom and heading down to fill the backseat of the car, until there was barely an inch of space left in the back and the trunk. With all of you helping, it only took a couple of trips to move everything, and you were done before you knew it. Then it was truly time to say goodbye. You convened back inside the apartment, where Kira looked over the two of you with a quiet smile. It was great to see you both. Thank you for coming. She gave each of you a hug, and you felt a little sad that you hadn't been able to spend more time with her. It was good to see you too, Mom. Cove embraced her in return, and the two of them holding each other for a few seconds longer. I'll miss you, but I'll visit again soon.
Of course.
You better. Hey, we should make plans for you to visit us too. I'll let you know when it's settled. I'd love that. Kira bundled up all the stuff she'd prepared into a bag and handed them over to you. You took a quick peek at what she had packed. There was fruit, nuts, seeds, hard-boiled eggs, and some veggie sticks.
Cool.
Oh, good to see we've got some fresh food options now. The snacks I bought weren't. Kira shook her head at him and let out a soft laugh, as though she wouldn't have expected anything else. I seriously hope you're feeding yourself better than that at home. Yeah, of course, just not on trips. I can live with that then. She looked over him fondly, her eyes at last focusing on his face and filled with emotion. I'm gonna miss you, baby.
Me too.
We'll all be together again before you know it. I hope so. Kira put an arm around you both, pulling you in tight to her sides for one final squeeze.
Bye.
Have a safe trip. We will. With a last goodbye, you exited the apartment, though Cove hesitated for a moment in the door, his expression distant. You weren't sure what he was doing, though you tentatively took a step towards him. Everything okay? Your voice seemed to bring him back to earth, and he shook his head to clear his thoughts, his green hair swaying from side to side.
Come on.
Yeah, let's go. With that, the two of you headed back down to the car, ready to make the long trip home. Soon enough, you were on the wide road with a car full of Cove's things, and only one destination, Sunset Bird, California. The drive went as smoothly as could be expected, with the morning slowly creeping into midday as the miles flew by. The day flew by in a whir of open road and sunshine, and before you knew it, it was early afternoon. By that point, you had already crossed the state line. Cove announced that he planned a little stop on the way home. He was quite pleased with himself as you arrived at the precip. Redwood National Park! Oh, we're back at the Redwoods! Shaded beneath a canopy of enormous redwood trees, you drove along. When Cove parked the car, you pushed the door to get out, and the first thing you did was look up. Enormous redwood trees surrounded you on all sides, their massive trunks shooting straight up into a canopy of foliage overhead. There were too many of them to count, stretching on and on as far as you could see. You squinted against the sunlight that was peeking through the leaves and dancing on the path around you. It's great, right? He smiled at you from over the roof of the car before glancing around the place fondly. Remember the trip our families took here that one summer? It was cool going on a journey and seeing the forest in person, even if we didn't stay very long.
So...
And I guess we can stay for even less this time, but oh well. It just seemed like a good time to stop by. Who knows when we'll get another chance. His voice got a little softer at the end. It seemed to be bittersweet for him, being in a place he was so fond of, but not having the time to appreciate it fully. You are pleased to have stopped there. It was a beautiful place to stretch your legs and take in some fresh air. I'll put up with you for the trees. Thanks for bringing me here. Ko smiled, shoving his... Why did my headphones disconnect? One moment. What is with my audio today? Why is it being weird? Let's see. Did that fix it? There we go. I can hear myself again. Why does it sound weird? Whatever. There we go. I don't know what's with my headphones today. Okay. Ko smiled, shoving his hands in his pockets and dipping his head. No problem. The two of you walked around for a while, completely dwarfed by the sheer scale of the redwoods. It kind of put your view of yourself and everything in a strange perspective. You took in a lungful of clean forest air, listening to the sounds of birdsong and the cool breeze rustling through the underbrush, taking advantage of the space to move around freely. However you felt about being there, it was a totally different scene than sitting in that old car for hours and hours. Wrap an arm? Well, I'll do wrap an arm around Cove. Yeah. He relaxed into your touch and smiled at you fondly, enjoying the closeness. Being here again, you couldn't help but reminisce on what else had happened during the trip you had taken here all that time ago. There were a lot of things that had reminded you of it recently. You looked over at Cove, who seemed to be lost in the peace of the place, and you wondered if any of it crossed his mind. Smiling at the sight, you thought back on what had been the highlight of that long gone vacation. Remember how a bird stole your dad's lunch? Elizabeth used us mercilessly on that trip. We'll do our families were so close. Back then, and still now, we've done so many things together. Cove chuckled and shook his head, just as you were thinking back on how your families had started to come together. Yep, we're just one big happy neighborhood, huh? You continued chatting about the trip a little while longer, about the things you had seen and done and even eaten. A lot of the memories Cove had of the trip were similar to your own, but you were also surprised to hear of a few other things from his point of view. So much had happened that there was no shortage of things to talk about. The place certainly had a nostalgic quality to it. Your spirits were light as you ambled past information boards and picnic areas. But before long, you decided it was time to bring this short stop to an end and head back to the car to get on the road again. Cove sighed when you finally reached the vehicle, jangling the keys in his hand before unlocking the doors.
Well,
I wish we didn't have to go, but we're going to be responsible and not stay longer than we should. How grown up of you. He smiled slightly, and with that, the two of you jumped into the car, buckled in, and he put it in drive. You were getting closer and closer to town as the sun started setting. though we're still far enough away that the radio stations were unfamiliar to you. Cove twisted the dial this way and that before stumbling onto a channel with a song he seemed to like. It was a rare gift from the fates in a sea of static, strange radio jockeys, and grating tunes. His face immediately brightened at the sound of it, and he drummed his fingers along the bottom of the steering wheel happily. Sitting back in his seat, he bopped his head and shimmied his shoulders in time to the tune, all while mouthing along to the words. Occasionally, he even lifted one hand from the wheel to gesture with his fingers for a specific line. Just smile. You got the impression he was pleased to be heading back home after everything. The song ended, and Cove reached over to start cycling through the radio stations again. Upon finding nothing tolerable, he flipped the dial off in defeat and leaned back in his seat with a sigh. You rested your head on your hand and stared out the window as the sky darkened, watching the landscape slowly melt into more familiar views. The miles went on, and any energy you had earlier was beginning to drain away. You imagined home and your family. You'd be there together soon. You know, I've spent all these years living in Sunset Bird and take a few weeks each summer visiting my mom in that second room. That's not gonna happen anymore. Not really.
I mean,
I can still see my parents, but the way it all works between us has changed forever. He paused, the silence stretching, a serious look settled on his face, his thoughts far away. We'll sympathize and say I feel the same way about my parents too. I know they'll always be there for me, but we don't really have the same relationship we used to. Cove's mouth pulled into a tight line, and he gave a small nod. You got the feeling that he understood how you felt. Cove stared straight ahead, down the long, long road. The path looked like it'd never end from where you were, but that wasn't true. Eventually, he found a few more words to say.
I'm so glad.
I think it's good we were able to do this trip without any parents or chaperones. It was just us. We did it all. I don't know, I feel a little more independent now. A little more ready for whatever's ahead. Yeah. It's like a real first step to be on our own all the time. It'll be here before we know it. The topic seemed to wear on Cove, and he made an attempt to find something else to speak on. So I'm kind of sad about getting back. I'm gonna miss having you right there tonight. He cleared his throat quietly, though said nothing more. You smiled to yourself a little at hearing him say something like that out loud. I'm gonna miss it too. And with the feelings confirmed as mutual, the two of you fell into a comfortable silence. The sky outside grew ever darker as the hours passed by, the stars blinking on like tiny fireflies painted onto a canvas of blue. The scenery continued transitioning between open roads, industrial areas, and beach towns, becoming increasingly recognizable as time went on. You felt somewhat disconnected from the world around you. As you watched it through your window, your tired mind growing hazy. Yeah. It was a strange, reflective feeling, but peaceful nonetheless. Soon enough, the world would return to you, and you'd find your feet firmly on the ground. It couldn't be helped. The adventure would end, life could continue, but your memories would linger on. Okay, that one was a cute one. And what time is it? 11. We should probably stop here for today. So a slightly shorter stream, not even 3 hours, but I have a lot I need to do today. And that's a good stopping point. So let me find the right buttons. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and end stream here today. Thank you all for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed it. I will probably be back on Wednesday, probably. I'll get my schedule for the next week posted either today, possibly tomorrow, because I do have a lot to do today, so I might not have time to finish it today. But if not today, it'll be posted tomorrow. It'll probably be more or less the same as this week, unless I change it. I don't know. Anyways, thank you all for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a great rest of your day, great rest of your weekend, and a great however long until I see you again. Until next time, bye bye.